He's in love. She instantly reached down, picked a single dandelion, and held it gently under his chin. "Did you know you were in love?" she asked. Her name was Catherine and was a nurse in the Navy. A whirlwind romance ensued. Joe knew that he had to marry her, but he couldn't until he told her his secret. A deep and dark secret that might not only destroy his chance at love, but also destroy his very freedom. Before he could summon the courage to tell her, new orders were shoved into his hand by an uncaring naval officer. He was to report to the HMCS Cayuga as a medical officer before sailing off for the coast of war-torn Korea. On board the Cayuga, Joe was immediately under scrutiny as a new member of the officer corps on the ship, and as the person plugging up bullet wounds, the sailors aboard the destroyer had a vested interest in their new medical officer's skill. Soon, he was called into the captain's cabin, as his new commander, James Plomer, was complaining of a terrible aching pain in a few of his teeth. Joe assured the captain that he could remove the offending teeth immediately, but he needed to gather his equipment below decks. After what seemed like an eternity, the captain sent his executive officer down to Joe's quarters, demanding what was taking so long. He assured them that his office was simply disorganized, and he needed a moment longer. After some pleading from the exec, Joe returned to the captain's quarters, administered a healthy dose of Novocaine, and deftly yanked out the two clearly rotten teeth. The HMS Cayuga offered close artillery support to soldiers on the ground. Typically, the cannons were enough to prevent any friendly casualties. But one September afternoon, a Korean junk saddled up the Cayuga carrying a boatload of injured Korean soldiers. Joe was watching the ship's engine idle when an officer retrieved him. Joe looked upon the pile of bleeding men as the captain stood next to him. "You willing, Joe? It is not required." But the pitiful faces of dying men, regardless of what side they were on, were enough to turn his heart, and he resolved to help them. The 19 soldiers were gravely injured and would certainly die without his help. Even if his help could only give them the slightest chance of survival, he could not sit idle. Dr. Joseph Sear descended into a lifeless realm that cool September afternoon. His sickbay, a waiting room before the afterlife. The skipper and navigator up at the bridge, watching a storm sail toward them, desperately held the ship steady as every cry of pain echoing up from below decks reminded them of death. If they lost control of the ship, it wouldn't matter what Joe did. Those men would not survive.
Found.
By the time Joe was done, the morning sun was cresting over the horizon, the Japanese mainland stretching wide across the view from the little porthole down in the medical bay. By the end of his stint, Joe had performed 16 surgeries, including open chest surgery. He wrote a letter back to Catherine in Halifax, hoping she would hear of his exploits. And at the same time, he was approached by a young press officer interested in a colorful story for the Army newspaper. The officer told the doctor that his story would be in Army dispatches and would also be shown in his hometown's local papers. Despite being from Grand Falls, New Brunswick, he insisted that the paper be shown in Halifax with the hopes that Catherine would see it too. At the same time, however, in the sleepy town of Edmundston, a short drive north of Grand Falls, New Brunswick, another Dr. Joseph Sear was answering some phone calls. "I read a newspaper in Halifax that said you saved a bunch of kids in Korea." "No, not you. Your son, then?" At first, Joe thought it must be some perplexing cosmic coincidence. There are lots of Sears in the world, he mused. But then, after learning that he was the only Dr. Joseph Sear in the whole of Canada, and seeing a photograph of the alleged Dr. Sear, he realized the perplexing truth. "Why, this is my friend, Brother John Payne of the Brothers of Christian Instruction." The papers, without consulting the Navy, had published the article on the mystery surgeon's exploits in not only Halifax, but Toronto as well. This drew the attention of some higher-ups, and they quickly unraveled a spiderweb of lies that led an imposter to the position of chief medical officer on a military ship. The question remained though, who? Boyce Hammond, after leaving the law program at Northeastern Law School in Boston, arrived at the Brothers of Christian Instruction in Alfred, Maine as a convert with a PhD in zoology from Purdue. The monks were elated and immediately introduced him into the order. The first thing Cecil did was suggest that the brothers grow their small junior college, which specialized in teachers' education, into a full-time 4-year college. The other brothers thought this was a grand idea and let Cecil take the name Brother John Payne before beginning beginning his valiant yet extraordinarily pushy time at the college. This is where Brother John Payne met Dr. Joseph Sear.
You're very talented. Aim for the neck. Easy kill.
We don't have smoke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow.
Where are you?
Bring them down.
Spike planted. Last player standing.
Wow, one spawn.
In the small town of Alfred was a cozy affair, with snow hedging in the inhabitants for months at a time. The two became fast friends, chatting about all sorts of subjects, medical information especially, growing closer over time. As John neared the end of his probationary period,
She.
I will save. I will find you.
Here.
Enemies mid.
There.
My camera is destroyed.
Spike planted.
Five sec, league one.
Spotted A.
I'll find you.
I think.
Mark two. Last player standing.
Good.
So, we have to kill my double. So be it.
Seriously? Oh my god, no, don't do it, Kimbo.
You better hide, old man.
Enemy spotted. Enemy spotted C. Enemy spotted C.
One enemy remaining.
Ses there. Feed me. Red.
Don't worry. The house always wins.
They are so dead. Does anyone have funds?
You drop me? can buy.
Does anyone have fun? Merci.
Spike drop. Grass.
You will not kill my allies!
B. One more.
Prepared for hellfire!
One enemy remaining.
Last guy, grass. Last in.
I'll find you. Marked one. Reloading.
Trust me, they will make mistakes. When they do, take advantage.
Does anyone have fun?
Jet. I go here, you pick here.
Fight for it.
Safe one.
Enemy spotted C.
Let him push.
I'm waiting for you.
Enemy mid.
3. Grass. Going B.
Wait.
Window still. 1. One A.
Oh no. One default, one.
Spike planted.
Cage triggered.
One hell. One hell.
One saver.
Last player standing.
I'm the last thing they'll see before they die. Lucky them. Reloading.
Rina, can you play Seaside? Hey.
One
Hey.
minute.
Spike planted.
They found my wire.
Nightmare, take them! Mark 2.
Face your fear!
Last player standing.
40 feet.
Let's get these idiots.
First bay.
Going B, going B.
You will not
Planting B.
kill my allies.
Spike planted.
Silence.
Teleport's ready.
Last player standing.
We know more than we did before. Let's use that.
Let's take at least one down with us.
There.
Bro. See,
With the college, Joe asked him if he could do him a favor. Brother John was American, and as a Canadian, Joe needed help to acquire the right papers to get a license to practice medicine in the United States. Give me your records and
Spike
credentials,
planted.
and I can, doctor. All of them. The more, the quicker, said Brother John. And soon, he had a stack of papers
Last
weighing
player
nearly
standing.
a pound altogether. Soon after, a notice was posted announcing the staff assignments for the new college. Unfortunately, to the intense chagrin of Brother John, he was not put in charge of the college, nor was he given the head of the department. He was merely a biology teacher. Expanding the college into a 4-year program was his idea. How could they pass him up? In a rage over being ignored, he stormed off to his room to begin packing. On his way out,
Can you
he
fight
noticed a bottle
inside?
of wine
Yes, let me
used for
push.
mass, and in a fit of anger, drank the entire bottle in 2 swift gulps, all in front of a bewildered colleague.
Just fight inside.
Then
Don't
the
pick.
soon-to-be
Give info
former
lang.
member of the college
give info.
stomped out the front door, where he saw another colleague sitting in a station wagon.
Don't
Did
fight
they
with
fix
them,
it
bro.
yet? Asked Brother John.
Loading. I'll find you. Mark 3.
One garage, one garage.
Bring them down.
With me, with me, with me, with me.
Spike down B. Spike planted.
That's a good spot.
One enemy remaining.
Fix what? Said the young man in the driver's seat. That whirring noise like the transmission is about to explode, replied John. I'll race the motor for you. The brother in the car immediately ejected himself from the vehicle while John plopped himself in the driver's seat and behind the school he regarded as his own, and a baffled brotherhood bewildered by the boldest burglary they had ever beheld. Outside of Lawrence, Massachusetts, there is a hand-painted sign. It reads, "Welcome to Lawrence. Our motto, see Dante's Inferno, Canto 3, line 9. If we look it up, we find the passage, all hope abandoned, ye who enter here, the mythological words resting above the entrance to hell. If you were very lucky, you might have seen the lurching figure of a stray 29-year-old hauling up a dark sign outside of..."
You want to play? Let's play.
You will not kill my allies! Get out of my way! We found one. Grounded. Still in sight.
1B, 1A, 1A, 1A. Going A, going A.
Yeah, on it.
Spike planted.
Wait me. I have recon.
Still in sight.
Long.
There.
Just tap
One
the bomb,
enemy
bro.
remaining.
That was money.
Spike defused.
At a hometown he always dreamed of outgrowing. Almost 30 years before brother John sped off into the distance,
Show me
a
where to
boy
go.
was born to a French-Canadian father and an Irish-American mother in the little town of Lawrence, just outside Boston, on December 12, 1921.
Need a
As
drop.
the first male son of the family, his father was elated to finally have an heir and treated his son as such. The boy was named after his father, becoming Ferdinand Waldo Demara Jr., and on the day of his 4th birthday, dear old dad announced boldly to all present,
Watch this!
For mid.
Face your fear!
There they are.
Smoke the trap, smoke the
Here.
trap.
Blocking sight.
Planting B.
Spike planted.
Enemy B.
One enemy remaining.
Reloading.
Reloading.
Defuse the spike.
Reloading.
Reloading.
Last round before the switch.
Don't be silly.
One enemy remaining.
Silang last.
Flawless. Switching sides.
Give me a moment.
that, beginning tonight, he is to be called Mr. Demara. To an applauding audience, young Ferdinand, going by Fred,
just go away.
stepped onto a table, fetched a handful of roses, and gave one to
Let me
each
cut
of
mid,
the
let me
family's
cut mid.
servants.
Just go away.
Such was Fred's pseudo-aristocratic upbringing, and it reflected in his vision of himself. However, the nouveau riche lifestyle became more difficult to uphold as his family's wealth declined during the Great Depression.
I'll
Young
roller
Fred
Sigma.
hated the look of patched shoes, seeing them as an insult to his station. In the coming years, Fred left home to join a monastery of Trappist monks. He moved around a bit with the Brothers of Charity, another
Bring them down.
Reloading.
Mark one.
Reloading.
One's over.
Push yours. 65.
Last player standing.
Hit low.
monkhood where he taught 4th grade. Eventually, he got into an argument with the head brother, stole a car, some money, and ran off to join the army. It was 1941. Now, as it turns out, war is a pain in the rear at best and a death trap at worst. Not at all the kind of place a formerly wealthy boy born with a silver spoon in his mouth could make a name for himself.
After we played the
It
bundle
wasn't all
challenge,
bad,
the
however.
enemy
Aside from parades in the
just
early
goes
morning, calisthenics, and the possibility of
Don't
being
know
sent to
smoker.
fight in an actual real-world war, Fred made some friends while he was there. One day, while in Anthony's hometown of New Orleans, the duo
This is
went
gonna
to his
be fun.
childhood home to meet his mother, who took out a box.
Where are we?
Someone is not.
Silong.
One enemy remaining.
Nice.
Nice from A. From A.
Aw, thought to try harder.
Good eco.
I can't see them yet. I can feel them getting ready.
I need to get a clip because I think I just got a clip. But the thing is, I just got a clip. I need to send to my phone. Then I put on shots. The thing is, it's too short. So I need a couple more one steps to put. Okay? I want to make like a 10 second instead of like 5 seconds. Understand?
Let's rush A.
Okay.
Bonne chance, mes amis.
Bring them down.
I think.
Find you. One down. Yikes.
It's a one tap.
Close plan. Don't push. Let them come.
Go city.
One enemy remaining. Long.
Oh well.
We get a pick. We move in.
Reload.
Got it?
So now I got 2 one tap. I can shoot it. I still can't. I need another 3 more. 3 more. But I think yesterday I got more one tap.
Box full of mementos and documents outlining Anthony's life. Anthony thought that his friend Fred would die of boredom looking over his old.
Bring them down. Where are you? Inside.
No.
Bring them down.
One heaven.
Wait me.
Tip.
Wait me.
Goodbye.
One side.
One less.
Low, chamber low.
One enemy remaining.
Nice.
But you are not part of my bigger picture. Reloading.
Look your enemy in the eye. It helps with choice.
I have money if you need.
Jet swap. Jet. Don't OP. Sell it.
Spikes here.
Find you. Enemy spotted C. Still inside.
Lock the sight.
Spike down. C.
Blind with fear.
I have last player standing.
So close.
One enemy remaining.
Last one.
old papers, but Fred was enthralled. He pored over his friend's documents. "What do you see in those things?" Anthony asked. "I see a whole life ahead of me," Fred replied. A few weeks later, after sanding down a blister on his heel until it bled in order to get out of marching orders, Fred snuck out using a forged day pass and took the bus down to New Orleans. Surprising Anthony's
30
mother,
seconds left.
he appeared at her front doorstep, saying he wanted to take a look at his friend's papers again. He pored over the little box of documents until late in the night. Anthony's mother left for bed, and in the morning, all she found was a note thanking her for her kindness, and the box containing her son's life back in his room where it belonged. Luckily
10
for
seconds
Fred,
left.
she didn't bother checking to see if there was anything left inside. If he'd asked him why he did it, Fred would have been very clear. He hated these fights. He was still wanted for car theft, and the only way to get out of his responsibilities was to become someone else. And become someone else he did, and he did so over and over. First, under the guise of Anthony Agnolia, he joined the Abbey of Our Lady of Gethsemane in Kentucky. Then, after being caught in a lie, he bolted for New Mellery Abbey near Dubuque, Iowa. Shortly after that, he returned home, where his father chastised him for deserting the army in a time of war, a capital offense. Instead of turning himself in like a good boy, Fred joined the Navy, hoping to quickly rise through the ranks as a medical officer. However, despite doing well through basic training, he was rejected for advanced medical training because he didn't have the right education. So, once more, Fred made his plans to escape military service.
You want to play? Let's play.
Tipid.
Mark 2.
3A. Let's go see. Go see. 3A.
After doctoring documents, scamming officials for school transcripts, and collecting the appropriate paperwork, he strolled down to the docks and left a note on the side of the water, begging forgiveness, hoping that his former comrades would assume he drowned. Fred Waldo Demera was dead, and now only Dr. Robert Linton French, PhD in psychology, was left. Fred worked under French's name for as long as he could, bouncing around different Christian colleges, doing sundry work, teaching and cooking here and there. Unfortunately for Fred, however, he was caught by military police in 1945 and imprisoned for desertion. Lucky for him, his original sentence of 6 years was cut down to 18 months for good behavior. After being released from prison, Fred got a job working nights at the Massachusetts General Eye and Ear Infirmary. This was a dream come true, as now he had unabashed access to the infirmary's mailroom, and he quickly set about to create a new identity. Fred had heard about Dr. Cecil Boyce Heyman on the bus, and thought he was as good a man as any to be. Fred forged the signatures of doctors who worked at the clinic, and used office stationery to acquire Dr. Cecil's credentials. So now, with all the documents he needed, he set off for Northeastern Law School in Boston.
Where are you? Blocking sight. Face your fear!
Spike down A. Last player standing.
From here, we know some of the story. Fred, under Dr. Cecil's name, joined the Brothers of Christian Instruction, met Dr. Joseph Sear, and acquired his documents before speeding off into the night. We also know that after that, Fred, now as Dr. Joseph Sear, joined the Canadian Navy and met the love of his life, Catherine, on that sunny day in Halifax. Many have purported that Demara had a photographic memory and a genius-level IQ. After only a frantic reading of the medical textbooks he had in his fraudulently acquired office, he was able to successfully perform dental work, open chest surgery, and a litany of other life-threatening injuries. Whether or not he truly possessed an exceptional brain is hard to confirm. What isn't, however, is that no matter what identity he was wearing, Fred Waldo Demara was no different.
Take the spike.
3 here, 3B. Oh god.
Jet on C. Oping.
Oh, 120. Flank, one shot.
Reyna, flash. Can you flash?
Way faster.
Smoke. Cypher.
Cage trigger.
Doubt a master of charisma. After the news of Dr. Joseph Sear was an imposter, the authorities came for Fred quickly. He was transferred into the custody of another Navy vessel and immediately shipped back to Canada, where he was interrogated, still claiming to be a surgeon who, for one reason or another, had to enter the Canadian Navy under a false identity. The Royal Canadian Navy, not wanting to embarrass itself and learning that a man with no medical knowledge whatsoever had somehow infiltrated their ranks, performing over a dozen surgeries, all successful, discharged him at once, hoping that with his departure, all memory of this humiliation would fade. After Fred returned home to America, nursing the wound of being captured, he sold his life story to Life magazine, who regaled the world with the exploits of Ferdinand Waldo Demara, the great imposter. It did little to help him feel better, and eventually he turned more and more to drink. He took on odd jobs here and there under this or that disguise, but by 1957, as he taught at a local school at
Bring them down. I have this fight.
I'll find you. Mark 1. Bring them down. Blocking sight. Our spike carrier is killed.
Spike down A.
Heaven.
I got the spike. Blocking sight.
Too slow.
Spike planted.
Hide.
On challenge.
Prepare for hellfire!
One enemy remaining.
Out from you. Gun here.
These guns we use are okay, but I will also bring my...
Need a drop.
No offense.
Thank you.
Reloading.
in Maine, he was recognized for his story in life and arrested by the FBI on February.
Yeah, I just wanna be the greatest. Everybody knows my name.
Can you go A, Cypher?
And I'm gonna be famous. Ain't nobody able to delay this. Coming up, I had a mission to make it. Never wanted to be nothing, always wanted to play shit in class.
Stay down.
One heaven.
Two here. Cypher, let's do here. Rotate. Cypher, rotate.
Let me check first. Give me the spec,
Enemy kill.
No shot.
I'm going
You
in.
will not kill my ally. Face your fear.
Go back. Onay, go back.
One enemy remaining.
Graffiti last. No.
City. My bad. Take five.
Yeah.
Don't fight.
Go. No time.
Chamber is low. Chamber is low.
No time.
Cage
Just
trigger.
end the shot. It's not really nice. I'm like, why?
They check your life. Thank you.
I don't want that carry that one. Oh,
Cypher, can you put traps here? Go.
Let's take it slow.
Yes, good.
You want to play? Let's play.
Oh, fuck him. He just pushed my bad, my bad.
14th. Fortunately, he was only arrested on charge of not having a teaching license and was given 2 months probation. In 1960, he was cast in a film called Hypnotic Eye, in which he learned he was a terrible, god-awful actor, despite acting basically his entire life. And in the same year, Robert Crichton wrote a biography on him. From then to the time of his death on June 7, 1981, Fred lived in relative obscurity, his newfound fame putting a stop to the majority of his cons and drifts. Looking back at what he did, he defines it as pure rascality. He never saw Catherine again. His medical degree might have been fake, but his love was definitely a surgeon. Remember, get back.
Last player
Most people don't
standing.
know this, but the best way to make money online in 2022 is not dropshipping, Amazon FBA, affiliate.
Day 500 setup. The young recruit sounding it as loudly as he could, but it was completely unnecessary. The Eco Assassins. Now we were under full-scale attack. The screams of the advancing horde was nearly as loud as the 50 caliber machine guns. I was about to rush to the nearest defensive fighting position when the Iron Lady grabbed me by the shirt. No, you stick with me from now on. I nodded my assent as Evan, the Iron Lady and commander of the Army of the Dawn, threw on body armor and grabbed a rifle from one of her men. The assassination attempt had lit a fire inside her, and she barked out orders in rapid succession to her subordinates. She was terrifyingly efficient. Not even a brush with death via poison needles and surprise attack in the middle of the night could rock her.
Cypher,
She was
can
an
you
impressive
put
woman.
your-
I can now see how she gathered such a large following of slavers,
Props.
raiders, and cannibals, all living under her banners and her laws.
No, here.
We settled into a fighting position along the very center of the outer perimeter. The Iron Lady led from the front. Ahead of us was a screaming horde of Aztecos, rushing across the desert in a huge human tidal
Not there,
wave.
bro.
Our intelligence had been wrong, dead wrong. We weren't facing a couple hundred warriors here. We were up against what looked
Toby.
Flank, see. Flank.
One heaven, I'm low.
I have dropped the spike.
Go.
Let's go. Wait.
All these thoughts keep me up at night. I can't think straight, need the light. I need to breathe. Get me up and out of the sheets, onto my feet. Another cup of coffee and me, that's what I need. My eyes puffy.
1 heaven.
30 seconds left.
Someone is beat.
Nightmare, take them!
Don't die, Jet.
Bring them down.
One enemy remaining.
Last.
Play together.
Take hold.
Holding her.
Still grass.
He's coming.
Don't pick, bro. We have camera, Cypher.
Nice.
Switching sides.
Reloading.
Overtime.
Panic. Trembling fast forward.
like at least 1,000. Save your rifles until they're within 200 meters. Let the machine guns do their work until then. The Jaguar warriors are bullet sponges. The real attack is behind them. The Iron Lady's orders were quickly obeyed. Out ahead and approaching rapidly for what I now knew.
Tripwires.
Marked one. Enemy spotted. They found my wire. 70, my bad. Heavy. One mid door.
Spike planted.
So the Aztecos called Jaguars. Their frontline infantry that attacked with everything from clubs to spears or makeshift axes and swords. It was horribly archaic and no match against a force armed with modern weapons. But they were also fueled by a volatile cocktail of drugs that numbed the pain and threw them into a state of psychosis for the battle. They were meant to soak up bullets and get up close and personal, throwing the enemy into disarray. Behind them, the Aztecos would advance their arqueros, or archers. They were well-trained infantry with modern weapons. It made a certain sense. Modern weapons and ammo was growing rarer every day. It wasn't good for war if you used up thousands of rounds of ammunition that was getting harder to replace. And when you control as much territory as the Aztecos, there's no shortage of maniacs to round up, fuel with drugs, and throw into the teeth of enemy defenses. The horde moved shockingly fast, at a full sprint with the entire 400 meters between us and the banks of the dried-up Big Sandy River. They showed no sign of exhaustion or fear as they filled the air with their blood-curdling battle cries. The strikers chewed.
Dropping spike. Headshot.
Flash.
Cypher.
Enemy spotted A.
Straight.
Oh, one more. Yeah, go A or C.
One enemy remaining.
Nice. Last healing.
I'll find you.
Bring them down.
Nice one. Let's go.
Into the Jaguar lines, big, heavy 50 caliber rounds snapping limbs clean off and putting fist-sized holes into targets. To my amazement, some Jaguars kept on coming for at least 20 paces before falling over stone cold dead. Somewhere behind their lines, though, I saw two streaks of light fly up into the sky and then level out, approaching us. I was puzzled for a moment, and then it hit me like it was about to hit two of our strikers. Javelins! It was a pointless warning. The striker crews couldn't have saved themselves even if they tried. The Javelin anti-tank missile had devastated Russian forces in Ukraine, and the 19-pound warhead obliterated the thinly armored strikers.
Grounded.
Roger. 2 mid. He was down.
Spike planted.
Reloading.
Last player standing.
1 to 7.
Ay, corazón.
Gorina, you got this.
One enemy remaining.
You're right. It's on side.
Don't rush me. My ult's right.
Nice. It's okay. My bad.
The crew never even knew what happened. Just under 10 seconds after launch, two of the strikers went up in flames, the shrapnel from the explosion maiming multiple soldiers taking cover nearby. We were down to 2 strikers on our right flank. Make that 1 striker. A 3rd javelin hit home seconds after the first 2. However, by now, the Jaguars were close enough that the surviving striker could finally open up.
If we win
Armed
this
with a
round,
Mark
we can
19
draw.
automatic grenade launcher, this striker did even more devastating work than the 50 caliber strikers had been doing. Each 40mm grenade had a kill radius of 5 meters.
Let me
The
block.
enemy was very
see.
tightly packed in. To my shock
go,
and
Rin,
horror,
go in.
though, they just kept charging, oblivious to the way their ranks were being decimated by the rapid-fire explosives. I brought my rifle to bear now.
Where are
Oh, 70. Chamber hit 70. B clear. C clear, C clear.
Go back, Reyna, go back. Atas.
Sure. Play for long. C long, play C long, play C long.
You lose.
One spawn.
Oh.
No, you got it. Oh no!
Enemy spotted, C.
One coming. Backside.
One enemy remaining.
Nice one.
Let's draw.
The enemy was within the Iron Lady's
Wanna
engagement
keep fighting or draw?
distance. She wanted the riflemen to conserve
Switching
ammo,
sides.
take more accurate shots at shorter ranges. It made sense, but it put the Jaguars terrifyingly close to our lines. Jaguar after Jaguar fell to the terrifying power of modern rifles and machine guns, and yet they kept coming. In what only seemed like seconds, the human wave broke into our lines. 3 Jaguars jumped into our EFP, and I immediately whirled around to engage them. The one in front of me was a horrifying sight. He was missing half his teeth, and those that remained he had sharpened into sharp fangs. He also attached blades with wires to his arms, and he slashed out at me with one arm. I couldn't use my rifle in such close quarters, so I used it as a club and blocked the attack, striking back with the butt of my rifle. The Jaguar was knocked backwards and briefly stunned from my attack. I reached for my knife at my boot and put it into his chest. The man continued to struggle and fight, completely oblivious to the mortal injury, until he finally went limp. Something smashed into my back and knocked me forward.
Plus 1 RR. Oh my god.
I'm feeling hella reckless, cashing on my checks, rich Nicki's on my neck, shit. She's on the offensive. I do not know my set list. Still I'm gonna get it. Yeah.
The Iron Lady immediately.
My team is checking over this massive contract, marking all the places I needed to sign. And then
Almost on top of me. I was lucky he stabbed right into my armor plate. I scrambled up to my feet just as our M240 gunner took a hatchet to the face. I jumped behind the machine gun and started firing as a vehicle sped through the desert behind us and came to a stop with the roar of tires through dirt. "Ma'am, it's hopeless. There's too many. We gotta get you out of here." The driver was yelling through the open passenger window of an old army Humvee. The Iron Lady looked around defiantly. I could tell she was on the verge of saying no, but she was a practical woman more than anything. The driver was right. This was a lost battle. Their numbers were overwhelming. "Everyone, out of the hole! Into the vehicle now!" The surviving members of the I said, "Fall back!" "No, if I get off this machine gun, we're all dead before we get to the Humvee. Go!" The Iron Lady's face was set in stone. Finally, she grunted in acknowledgement and ran back to the could see a break in the Jaguar waves. Finally, their main assault was being expended, but that still left their arqueros. The barrel of the M249 began to glow in the dark from the heat, but there was no time for a barrel change. Then, I felt something hit the side of my head, and the world went dark. Days 540 electricity. For a few moments, I heard the monitor beeping steadily along next to run over. My vision became the chair next to my bed. She had a bullet to the head, but luckily the bullet had been from a bad cartridge and didn't have enough energy to penetrate my skull. It had more than enough energy to knock me out, though, and cause significant bruising to my brain. After getting me back to Havasu, doctors put me in a medically induced coma to allow my brain to heal without me distressing it. It'd been Watson who dragged me to safety. The army had been overrun, but the Iron Lady had sent a few more vehicles to get as many survivors out of there as possible. Not many had made it, only 24 or so out of just over 100. The rest had been killed, or worse, taken as slaves, or for the arcane blood rituals that fired up the Aztecos for battle. I was in the hospital for a few days, but got word that the Iron Lady had requested to see me just as soon as I was strong enough to stand on my own 2 feet. It was nice to have electricity again. The hospital ran on solar power and was the only building in town that had access to electricity. There just wasn't enough sunlight pouring through the perpetually clouded sky to generate enough juice for more buildings. Millions of tons of material was still in the upper layers of the atmosphere from the 2-year ongoing nuclear war that the rest of the world was waging. Days 545 to 549, Watson finally came by the hospital to visit after returning from a patrol. He told me that the Aztecos seemed to have retreated after destroying our forces at Greenwood, and the Army of the Dawn had been sending out patrols to monitor for any push into its territory. So far, nothing, but Watson felt uneasy. It was like the quiet after that first bolt of lightning before the whole sky comes crashing down on you, he said. The conviction with which he said it made a shiver run down my spine. Doctors kept me under observation for a few days before they finally let me go. I had a tremendous headache that came from time to time, but other than that, I seemed to be in good shape after my recovery. After 2 days at home with Christina, the Iron Lady summoned me. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I was escorted into her headquarters immediately upon arrival. Eben, the Iron Lady and the ruler of the Army of the Dawn, was hunched over a large map of her territory, surrounded by multiple advisors, her generals. As I entered the room, her gaze flickered over to me for a moment before returning to her briefing. A few minutes later, the small huddle finally broke up, and Eben nodded for me to join her by the map table. I could see the familiar map of her territory lying before me. The blue pin at Greenwood, however, was gone. I noticed fresh pinholes from other fortifications along that border, all with missing pins. They've hit us across a wide front.
Another ascendant. Let's go.
Reloading. Launching smoke. Enemy spotted B.
Reloading. Reloading.
Spike down B. Last player standing.
Reloading. Zip.
Chamber, let me borrow one of your guns.
Let's see.
Please?
I'm going to
Come on,
save.
man, please? I said please.
One out.
Enemy spotted A.
Last player standing. Spike down mid. Flawless.
If you are not doing well, keep trying. You must keep up appearances.
The last month.
Bring them down.
Here. Smoke's down. Stim beacon down.
Where are you? Reloading.
Spike down B.
Catch them.
Hey, let's play.
Oh, there's a hole.
Oh my god.
Need equipment. Thanks.
Wait. I play mid.
Need a drop.
Two, guys. Two here. Door. One door.
Multiple enemies, A.
You can go B if you want. Go B.
Dim beacon down. Smoke's down.
Spike down B. Last player standing.
I got your backs. Just, you know, from the front.
They are so dead. Take it down. Together.
Let's take the race. Up by.
Bring them down. They're blind with fear. Multiple enemies.
Dim beacon here.
Where are we? Grenade!
Open up the sky.
Okay. Spike is down.
Spike down B.
Spike carrier is killed.
Last player standing.
Out of charges.
One enemy remaining.
That's
Nice. Bring this fight to
30 seconds left.
spike planted. I opened their mind.
Last player standing. One enemy remaining.
My bad. Race, come with us.
Here. Time to take this hill.
Bring them down.
Wait.
Last player standing.
Destroyed.
Go. Party, go.
One enemy. Reloading. Bring them down.
Like butter, baby.
I'll find you. Bomb buddy out. Reloading. Grenade! Spike planted. Nightmare, take them! Blocking sight. One enemy remaining.
Update on it. Very low.
Woo! We got this. Spike's there. Reloading.
You want to play? Let's play.
Don't pick.
Spike dropped. Enemy spotted A.
Bring them down.
Regroup. Let's go, Jet.
I'll find you.
We have a smoke.
Enemy B.
No charges left. One enemy remaining.
That's me.
Take hold. Last player standing.
You have recon 3. Use it.
Oh, clutch.
It seems these strangers want me dead.
Can you play?
Yes.
Every day that I wake up in a nightmare. Every day that What's this? See quite clear when I look at my surroundings, and everybody still doubts me. I wanna live to hear a crowd sing. Where are you?
Bring them down. Your fault. Spike carrier down.
Spike down, attacker spawn.
Get out of here! Right here. Right here. Who trained you? Got the spike.
Spike down A. One enemy remaining.
Gaming.
What is even going on? Why the hell do I even write songs? What the hell am I doing here, man?
Last player standing.
Yeah, just go. He's
But maybe ignorance is bliss. In the abyss.
30 seconds left.
Be aware of what I missed.
I have the spike.
Nice try. Sorry, my bad. I should try
What you could
once.
have became. That dude would drive me insane. So I intend on staying in my lane.
We're here because we're the best. Don't any of you forget that.
Where are they? Everything has changed. That's all be okay. I'm seeing everything.
Right here.
Smoke here.
One day.
No more dreams. Where are they? There.
Fully smoked. Reloading.
One horse open.
Sit still.
Can't use that.
Bring them down.
One enemy remaining.
Let's go. Let's go. I'll find you.
Spike planted. Five.
Nice one.
Bingo.
Let's spike, please.
Who am I kidding? My knees are gonna kill after this.
Oh, 95.
Welcome to my world.
Viper ulti.
Enemy spotted me. Enemy spotted A. Reload. Enemy spotted A.
One pushing me.
My ult's not ready. Oops. I got the spike.
Nice one.
Blocking sight.
30 seconds left.
Spike planted. No target left.
Tower. Last round in the half.
Send those treads before we lose them.
Need a drop. Gun here.
Bunch of
Nice.
Spike down, B. I got the spike. Night night.
You're a baser. Go get some top. Go.
Yeah, I was trying to run. They're spamming me. All three here? Yeah, all three there. I'm rotating A.
Run A.
I'm running.
$30 seconds left. Spike planted. Last player standing.
Oh, both there?
Hi! I'm pissed!
Oh, fuck me. My bad, sorry. I just... Yes!
Let's support Jet. I mean,
No, later I'm losing it. You can use it for half an hour. I'm gonna go out at 11:30 with my headphones. Oh my
Switching
God.
sides.
Make their feet go sweaty.
What? No! There's gonna be no battery, stupid. But I'm gonna use it, dumbass. No, I'm gonna use it while I go there, then charge. It's already charged full, but 对，我是要用，我走的时候我会用的，所以他一直用到我走，但是没电，你懂明白吗？
B, left. $92 Jet, very low.
Okay.
Multiple enemies beat.
Spike down,
Hold.
One enemy remaining. Team Ace.
Nice one.
You crushed them. Reloading.
Remember to talk to each other out there. We communicate, we win.
I don't have
Go out. No, push.
Hey.
Oh, okay. 2 mid, 3 mid. 2 out, 1
Next.
1 mid.
Somebody.
1 shot.
Last player standing.
Body.
My ult's not ready. I'll find you. Blocking sight. No one beats my firepower. I got this.
Ah, yeah.
Last player standing.
100 on Neon. Neon and kill. Neon and kill is...
Reloading.
Grenade! Spike planted. Enemy spotted B. Last player standing. Do you want to dance?
Lol.
One shot.
Where are you? Found one. Catch them. Spike planted. Reloading.
Reloading.
Satchel out. Enemy spotted B. One enemy remaining. Last player standing.
Nice.
Like you could stop me.
Oh my god.
Lost that. Enemy spotted A. Let's get the
40, my bad. GG.
Mid.
Enemy spotted A. Get him. Reloading.
I got you, man. Yeah, of course. What? One shot, 117. My bad. Yo.
Last player standing. 30 seconds left. Spike planted. Cutting their vision.
Heaven out. Nice.
We gotta pick
One enemy remaining.
Got it?
Find you.
Take hold.
Spike planted. Last player standing. Match point.
Okay, we know the drill. Stick to your roles and we'll crush it.
Wait, are you really Ascendant? Or are you just having like bad day?
Bad day, bro.
Yes.
What's this?
BBB anak.
Oh no, behind you. Oh shit, my bad, sorry.
But he never actually followed up with the attacks to try to hold the territory. Evan gestured at the maps before, pointing out to the empty pinholes. Could be they're probing our defenses, learning how we fight and what we got to fight with. It's a diversion trying to put some crazy
I guess.
The Iron Lady nodded. My assessment. I've got scouts out north and south looking for a main force. They haven't seen anything so far, but we're not reinforcing the lost outpost yet. Not until we know where the main attack is coming from. Her assessment is we have territory to trade for time until the main attack is found. Even if that meant the loss of several communities, I'd seen what the Aztecos did to their own bodies. I shuddered to think what they did to their prisoners. Clearing her throat, the Iron Lady motioned for me to follow. There's another matter to discuss. Follow me. She took me outside to a small courtyard, probably once a place for city workers to relax and eat. But the Iron Lady had turned it into a ceremonial gathering place of sorts. There was a small crowd gathered. To my surprise, they looked at me with some measure of respect. What in the world was going on? The Iron Lady gestured for me to wait, then took place upon a small raised platform so she could address the crowd. She spoke of the battle, of our losses, and promised revenge. Then she turned to me. For heroism covering the retreat of myself and my command staff, under threat of certain death, I award you the first son of one of our highest honors. I was flabbergasted, staring dumbly at the Iron Lady even as she gestured. I approached. I willed my legs, but my mind was racing. I'd come out here how long ago? Half a year at least. My goal had been to find out how to destroy the threat that loomed over people I loved back home in California. Now, the leader of an army of cannibals, raiders, slavers, and other desperados was awarding me their highest honor after saving her life twice. The Iron Lady pinned a medal on me that looked like a fist raised defiantly into the sky. It looked original. Somebody had manufactured this. The Iron Lady shook my hand firmly, then narrowed her gaze.
Earn a 258 Singapore dollar welcome bonus when you open an account with Owenda. Simply sign up, deposit a minimum of 4,000 Singapore dollars and meet minimum trade requirements to receive your bonus. What are you waiting for? Sign up to our award-winning platform today with our mobile...
Please touch this map, bro,
However,
please.
you still defied a direct order to retreat. In light of your heroism and self-sacrifice, I am commuting your sentence from death to 20 lashes. If my mind was spinning before, it was spinning even harder now. Yet despite everything, I suddenly felt myself center. I fixed my eyes on the Iron Lady's own and nodded. She was right. I had disobeyed a direct order from a superior officer in a battle. Control meant everything when your army was made up of bands of raiders. I was led to a clearing in the small plaza where a large wooden pole had been erected. It had restraints at the top. The contraption had clearly seen much use. Robert was there to greet me. He held my gaze, and once I was close enough, he held out his cupped hand. From the Iron Lady. Bite down on it hard. It'll help. There was a crude mouthguard of some sort in his hand. I took it and popped it into my mouth. Then a soldier stepped up to secure my hands and the restraints, but I shoved him away and took my shirt off, pressing my hands up above my head onto the pole. I caught Robert's nod of respect as he stepped away, but not before reminding me to bite hard. I did, and immediately I felt something crack inside the mouthguard, and a warm liquid poured out. I swallowed it by instinct. The Iron Lady allowed the silence to linger for a moment, then declared my charges and punishment once more to the crowd. The gathered raiders, cannibals, and slavers of the Army of the Dawn looked solemn. I expected excitement, howls for blood, anything. The first flash sent waves of fire across my back, and despite myself, I let out a short, muffled scream. However, I didn't move my hands from the top of the post. The second hurt worse than anything I'd ever felt before. By the time the third lash hit, though, the Iron Lady's gift was doing its thing. It hurt, but far less. I never became numb, but the agony was greatly reduced. Even this the Iron Lady had planned. She showed me great favor, but wished me to hurt just enough to learn my lesson. Days 550 to 554. She had you whipped! Christina was on the verge of angry tears again. It's been a few days since the incident, and I've been home recuperating. She was halfway through the job of replacing the bandages on my back, probably the only thing.
Multiple man.
Here. Killjoy, don't rotate.
Two out.
Record.
Heavy actually. Heavy.
On it. You rotate back, Killjoy. Enemy down. Knocking them. Going B. Yo, Killjoy, can you not rotate? Turn down.
Spike planted.
60 on fade. 60 on fade.
Oh, horse.
On back side.
One enemy remaining.
Come on.
60, low. He's low.
Last player standing.
Nice one.
Keeping her storming up upstairs to the bedroom. Watson had been staying with us since his return from patrol and puffed up on his pipe on the opposite couch. Yes, and she could have done worse. Despite everything, I could tell I meant it, and that worried all three of us. When I first saw you again after the end of the world, I asked you if you were with them. You promised me you weren't. Since running into her just over 5 months ago, I'd finally filter into my real mission here. I remembered the day, the shock of finding her again.
This is gonna be fun. Satchel out. Stay on site, Killjoy. Okay.
Spike planted. Last player standing. Thrifty.
The horror that she thought I might have been one of the raiders all along, and the betrayal. We'd broken up 3 months before the end of the world. She was supposed to have been at her brand new job on the East Coast. The entire reason we'd separated was because, according to her, our lives were headed in opposite directions. Yet she stuck around for 3 whole months after breaking up. I was glad in a way, but I felt betrayed nonetheless. My friend, I forget why it is that we're here. Watson spoke softly, ever cautious and wary of being overheard. I pondered my response when I was interrupted by a series of firm knocks at the door. Watson stood up to answer it, one hand slightly behind his right hip, staying near his knife.
Face your fear!
Enemy spotted A.
55.
Take them out! Last player standing. Spike planted.
Looking through the peephole, he shot us a warning look as she opened the door. Evan stepped into my apartment. Christina immediately stood and nodded politely, rage barely constrained as she excused herself upstairs. Watson turned to the spot, popping out his pipe. Evan walked over with a gentle hand on my shoulder and prompted me to turn around. Mind if I take a look? I turned so she could see the
One
16
enemy
board.
remaining.
She nodded knowingly, then produced a jar of strange ointment and slathered some on her hands. The sustainability and it'll help with the healing. Reduced scarring by a great deal too. I winced as she began to gently apply the salve to my back. After the
Concealment! Spike planted. Last player standing.
sting, though, came relief. Whatever it was strongly medicated. You understand why I had to make the display I did. It was Watson who answered, though, not me, because your throne sits at the apex of an organization built on maniacs, criminals, and psychopaths of the old world. If she was offended or...
I have this insane idea. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
Sit here. We'll both be smoked by my star.
Enemy spike down B.
I got two guys, it's all B. Guys, I did my job. Better give me one.
Reloading.
or
Enemy spotted. Reloading. Satchel out. Spike planted. Last player standing.
Consider what we built here. The stability and progress we've made since the end of the world.
One enemy remaining.
saw out agreement. Now you know what we're up against. She was right, as usual. The Army of the Dawn wasn't a pretty organization, but what lay at its borders was far worse. Thinking what might happen to my friends back in the West if the Army overran them worried me. Thinking what might happen if the Aztecos found them horrified me. As if reading my mind, the Iron Lady spoke again. I want you to go back home. I want you better, of course. Let the folks know what's really out there. I looked at Watson for just a moment, betraying my surprise. Oh, come on. You don't think I run an organization as large as this without my fair share of spies, do you?
Turret out. Come, Riz. Just cool down. We're good enough to win.
Oh shit, one more.
You will not kill my ally.
They might come from art. Here, they're here.
Concealment! Concealment! Pulling them in! Right there! Ouch! Grenade! Reloading. Satchel up. Last player standing. Spike planted.
I know where you came from, Farmbridge, and Big Bear before that. And I know despite all my organization's shortcomings, you still saved my life twice. The first time, I honestly didn't know it was her I was saving. In fact, I thought I was saving a victim from a raider attack. Turns out it had...
I have extra money if anyone needs.
Turret out! There. Rise and bring glory. What's this? Give me those back.
Overheat.
Last player standing. Spike planted. Their tech is only as good as their skill. And that we have to
I think we have buy. Make sure you can buy that house.
It had been the other way around. I'd killed an innocent person trying...
Nah, this idea is crazy. Just watch.
Oh, I'm being attacked.
Enemy spotted A. Deleted.
Trying to chop the head off this oversized monster, but the second time, that one had been by choice. I put my body between her and poisoned her on purpose. Once you're strong enough for travel, I want you to go back home. Let folks know what's lurking out in the wasteland. You know what we're up against. You know we can use all the resources we can get to counter this threat. I'd rather not have to waste the manpower on both sides. Just reapplying the salve, then screw the top back on it and set it on the top. Reapply every night until your back is really healed. And once it does, requisition whatever supplies you need from the farm. Just take us home, gentlemen. Greenswood was just a taste. Nobody can survive it.
Sorry, ear's still ringing.
I'll play the KO or someone else play.
Knife deployed.
Right there. Help me.
Throwing charge.
Multiple enemies mid. Enemy in running, I'm running. Enemy spotted mid.
Oh, bro, what the hell?
Face your fear!
Oh, city.
Alone in the wastes anymore. Without waiting for a response, the Iron Lady left, leaving a massive silence between Watson and I. Days 555 to 560. Despite not being well enough to travel yet, we still made preparations to leave. Christina was being distant. She didn't know about Alexis, of course.
One enemy remaining.
So I told
One enemy
myself,
remaining.
days 561 to 564. Christina begged me to stay so I could go to the doctor to eat the trip back to the work. I wouldn't be able to carry my own supplies for a while yet, but Watson was eager to leave just as...
Paint check. Charges check. Brakes. No worries. Need a drop. Alarm out. Placing swarm grenade. Placing swarm grenade. Get out of my way!
Multiple enemies beat. Well divided.
Blocking sight.
Where?
85 minutes.
Last player standing. Spike down B.
If I power down, restart me. You leave me for scrap, I'll kill you.
Oh, I got so many things.
Wait, make sure to save. Last round is out. Next round. Next round is our last round. Time for a Time's out. For art. Yeah, art, one art. Here comes the party.
Spike planted. That creature is dead.
Flashbang. Shutting them down. Flash.
Tap it.
Last player standing. Last round before the switch. Last round to use our creds and abilities.
Don't waste your firepower.
É uma questão dos seus heróis. Os nossos guias estão dispostos a ajudar.
begins.
Jets grounded.
Are they pushing art? Oh wait, no.
No.
Sage slow up.
Blocking sight. 30 seconds left.
Anything?
You will not face your fear!
Turrets destroyed. Tell my boss. Welcome to my world.
10 seconds left. Spike planted. One enemy remaining.
I saw. Oh.
Area's clear.
What's this? Thanks.
No, you don't deserve my inventions.
Switching sides.
As I was
We
and
got
agreed
this.
to carry my load. Reluctantly, Christina finally agreed. She didn't have much to pack other than
Reloading.
travel supplies. Being a slave for most of the world left her with little to call her own.
Gun here.
My heart hurt a bit for her as we hit the road and my mind started to
Maybe we
wander.
can go mid.
She changed so much since the world went upside down. She'd been so alive once, and now she was cautious all
Can
the
smoke
time.
here?
Her eyes constantly scanning
smoke
for
mid doors,
danger.
or I can fake
She
it.
reminded me of Lilith, and my heart ached a bit thinking about
I'll do a
her
fake,
and the
okay.
rest. Soon I found myself thinking about Alexis, but I shoved the thoughts away. Days 565 to 570.
Right there.
I felt like I'd been on the road
Right
ever
there.
since the world ended. The joke got a little bit of a laugh from both Watson and Christina as we
Faking the smoke.
Taking that back. Right there. Reload.
Nice.
Reload.
I think there's one more
Right
close
there.
here.
Battle out.
One close.
Spike down A. I got the spike.
Oh, there's two mid connector. Two mid connector, one mid doors. Oh, back off.
Last player standing. Spike planted.
We sat around the campfire. It was nice to see them laugh for a change. The last few months spent with the Iron Lady's army had been difficult. We'd all done things we never thought we'd do. The weight of our respective sins seemed to weigh heavily on us all. I hated to admit it, but maybe the three of us belonged with the Army of the Dawn more than we did back west. Well, maybe except for Christina. She'd only killed to protect me. It hurt to think about that night, how her mood had changed toward me ever since. There was a definite rift between us, but we clung to each other desperately regardless. As I lay down next to her to go to sleep, I couldn't help but wonder what we'd do if we ever found peace. Per usual, I guiltily found my thoughts drifting from Christina to Alexa.
Reloading. Spike down mid. Last player standing.
My bad. Sorry, I was AFK.
You will?
As sleep overtook me. Days 571 to 574. Harsh weather forced us to shelter in place for a few days. Freak torrential downpours of dirty brown rain. Extreme weather events were becoming more common as the Earth dealt with multiple environmental crises at the same time, and the unexpected torrent of rain created a serious danger of flash flooding. We moved to high ground and set up our tents, spending a miserable 3 days waiting for the rain to end. I didn't want to admit it, but I was glad for the break. My back was still healing and the stress of travel was taking a real toll. Christina tended to it every day at sunrise and sunset, and I was grateful for her attention. As we lay together one night, though, I realized we hadn't said I love you to each other since before the end of our old world, long before the fight that led to our breakup. Days 575 to 570.
Satchel out. There. Blocking vision. Concealment. Covering it. Enemy spotted. B. A spike carrier is killed. Spike down. B. Last player standing.
79. We ran into the Army's border guards after a few more days of travel. This wasn't unexpected. We knew that the Iron Lady had strengthened her border outposts ever since the attack on Greenwood. What was unexpected, though, was what we found. A caravan of people being turned around by the guards. This was a caravan of refugees from the western part of the Iron Lady's kingdom, and the border guards posted along the highway were preventing them from leaving her territory altogether. It was a bunch of scared families, no doubt terrified of an Azteco invasion and seeking safety in the far west. But the guards wouldn't let them through, angrily berating them and threatening to use their clubs on them if they didn't hurry up and turn around. It seems like the Iron Lady didn't want anyone leaving her little kingdom and thus weakening it right before a potential war. It was a stark reminder of her iron-fisted rule, but without her, these people would have probably been dead to begin with. I crossed that border once a long time ago, fully convinced that this army of raiders had to be taken down somehow. Now that I'd seen what was truly out here in the wastes, I wasn't so sure anymore. Days 580 to 585. We were allowed passage thanks to the orders I had from the Iron Lady herself. The guard captain looked skeptical at first, but thought better of it. He had enough to deal with without crossing the Iron Lady herself. As we left the lady's territory, we passed another caravan, this time on the way in. It had several wagons full of supplies, apparently a scavenging mission. But bringing up the rear was a line of survivors, all connected to each other.
The hunt begins.
By a rope tied around their neck. They were lucky they'd become slaves.
Wait, don't
If
go
not, Christina averted her gaze. I caught Watson holding mine, his face searching mine for something. I hated what I saw, and I caught myself torn between the stability the Iron Lady provided and the cruelty of her rule. I believed that she wanted to build better. This was a temporary price, without giving the raiders and camp.
I want nobody but you.
This is a high-tech moment, we pay. There's something called patience.
Come, let's turn point with you. It's so easy with you. I want nobody, that's why you.
Oh, open.
Last player standing.
Handful some leeway, it was impossible to bring order to the wastes. They were free.
My earpiece done already, right? Off we pay.
30 seconds left. Too stupid.
Free to raid outside the territory but not within it. And slowly over
10
time, when
seconds
civilization
left.
returned,
One enemy
the old
remaining.
ways would die out with it. Was this really the only way to build a new world from the ashes of the old? Days 586 to 590. We were moving faster now. I felt better, and I was able to carry my own backpack for a few hours at a time without being in agony. Seeing the familiar landmarks definitely helped their morale. I was excited to get back to Farmbridge and see Ruslana again. But what would I tell her when I finally saw her? The Iron Lady had asked me to be honest about my report on her and her little kingdom, along with the threat of the Aztecos to everyone in the wastes. I believed in the threat the Aztecos presented, and I knew that Farmbridge or Big Bear couldn't survive alone. Once they rolled through the Iron Lady's territory, they'd come for them next. It made sense to join forces with the Iron Lady, but that meant putting the people I loved in her grasp. I found myself more and more conflicted, survival versus ideals. The wrong decision could get everyone I cared about dead. Days 591 to 595, the sound of a jet engine put a halt to a lively conversation between the three of us, and we all simultaneously craned our heads up to the sky. The thick cloud cover made it difficult to see much. Thick debris still clogged the Earth's atmosphere, but somewhere above those clouds was a jet. Had to be a military one if it was braving the debris in the upper atmosphere. We never spotted it, but could track its movement west over our heads by the sound. At some point, it seemed to turn north, and then a few minutes later, the sky went silent again. The jet ended all conversation for the rest of our traveling day. All of us quietly contemplating that somewhere out there, the United States of America still existed. The thought was a sobering one, and it made the Iron Lady and the Aztecos seem small by comparison. But the truth was, we were out here on our own. And as far as we know it, America was now only existing across a handful of military bases somewhere deep in the heartland. There was just no way of telling how the nuclear war was going, or if it was even over. Days 596 to 600. Ruslana's people found us about a day and a half out of Farmbridge. She'd set out scouts exactly as I predicted. But the people that met us on horseback were strangers to me. That made things a bit tense. But it seems Ruslana had put out word that we should be expected someday. The scouts led us to Farmbridge, skirting around Slab City. It's good that I didn't recognize these scouts. I told Watson when we made camp one night and that Farmbridge was growing. He grunted his agreement, not bothering to voice the question we were both thinking. But was it enough? Was it enough to resist the Iron Lady and the Aztecos to the east? My mind was still racing even as we approached the gates of Farmbridge, trying to find a way forward for all of us. Suddenly, a familiar yell brought me back to reality, and staring in shock, I watched Alexis running forward, practically hurtling herself into my arms. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the happy barking sounds of Lucky rapidly approaching. Now, go check out episode 1 with I Survived 100 Days of Nuclear War, or click this other video instead.